Have you ever wondered what life was really like for ordinary people hundreds of years ago? How did they live, work, and survive in a world without modern technology or comforts? In this video, we will take you on a journey back in time to explore everyday life in small, rural communities during the Middle Ages. You will discover how villages were organized, what people ate, how they worked the land, and what challenges they faced. Join us as we step into the shoes of medieval villagers and uncover the stories of their daily lives. During medieval times, more than 90% of the population lived in the countryside. Towns and cities were rare, so villages were the main places where people lived and worked. These communities varied in size and shape. Some were tightly packed clusters of houses, while others stretched along a single road or spread out on hillsides. Each village was shaped by the landscape and the needs of its people. At the top of village society was the lord of the manor. This nobleman owned most of the land and held great power over those living there. The lord was responsible for justice, collecting taxes, and protecting the area. He often lived in a large manor house or castle near the village, but might be away on military or royal duties. When he was gone, his steward managed the estate, making sure everything ran smoothly. Supporting the lord were other officials like the bailiff, who organized farming on the lord's own land called the domain. The bailiff often lived close to the manor and was in charge of peasants working the fields. The reeve was a local peasant elected by villagers to oversee daily labor and keep financial records. This small group kept the village functioning and connected to the lord's interests. Most people in these rural areas were peasants. They fell into different social categories. Villeins were peasants legally tied to the land. They could not leave without the lord's permission and owed labor or goods in exchange for the right to farm small strips of land. Freemen were less common and enjoyed more freedom. They paid rent or taxes, but could move if they wished. Villagers worked hard from dawn till dusk. Their lives followed the agricultural calendar. They planted wheat, barley, oats, peas, and beans in carefully divided fields. The three-field system was commonly used. 2 fields were planted while the third lay fallow to restore nutrients. This method improved soil fertility and increased crop yields. Fields were divided into long strips scattered among families. This system shared the risk of crop failure. If one strip did poorly, others might succeed. Villagers also used common lands for grazing animals and gathering firewood or building materials. These commons were vital resources but strictly regulated by the manor court to prevent overuse. The peasants' tools were simple but effective. Heavy wooden plows pulled by oxen turned the soil. Sickles and scythes harvested grain by hand. Work was often communal, with villagers helping each other during plowing, sowing, and harvesting seasons. Women played key roles in planting, tending gardens, caring for animals, and processing food. Children learned skills early to contribute to family survival. Houses were small and basic. Walls were made with timber frames filled with woven twigs coated in mud and straw, called wattle and daub. Roofs were thatched with straw or reeds. Floors were usually bare earth covered with rushes. Windows were small holes with wooden shutters, so interiors were dark and smoky. Cooking was done over open hearths, and smoke escaped through holes in the roof. Animals often shared the house for warmth and protection. Pigs, sheep, and chickens lived inside during cold months. Cows were kept mainly for milk, which was turned into butter and cheese. Cheese was important, both as food and a product sold at markets for extra income. Villagers also hunted and fished when possible to add variety to their diets. Food was simple but enough to sustain hard labor. Bread was a staple, usually made from rye or barley, as wheat was expensive. porridges and stews called pottage combined grains, vegetables, and sometimes meat or fish. Meat was rare and often reserved for festivals or winter. Ale and mead were common drinks because water sources were often unsafe. The church was the spiritual center of village life. It provided not only religious services but also social support and education. The local priest collected tithes, 1/10 of the villagers' produce, as tax to support the church and clergy. Religious festivals like Easter and Christmas brought the community together to rest, celebrate, and enjoy games, music, and dancing. Villages hosted markets and annual fairs where merchants sold goods not produced locally. These events attracted traders who brought cloth, spices, metal tools, and luxury items. Entertainments such as jugglers, musicians, and wrestling matches made fairs lively and important social occasions. Life was hard and dangerous. Crop failures or bad weather could cause famine. Diseases like the plague, smallpox, and measles spread rapidly in crowded and unsanitary conditions. Wars and raids often destroyed homes and fields. Peasants had little protection and few rights, but endured through strong community bonds and faith. Despite these hardships, villages gradually improved. Farming techniques advanced, trade increased, and homes became larger and better built. By the late Middle Ages, some peasants gained wealth and influence, changing the social landscape. Still, for most, life remained a constant struggle against nature and circumstance. Living in rural settlements during the Middle Ages meant more than just farming. Life was governed by many rules and obligations, especially for those peasants known as villeins. These people were legally tied to the Lord's land and owed him various duties. They had to work certain days on the Lord's domain, the part of the estate reserved for the Lord's own use. This unpaid labor was called week work or boon work and could take several days each week. Villeins could not leave the manor without the Lord's permission. Marriages also required approval. If a peasant wanted to marry someone from another manor, they had to pay a fine called merchet. This kept families tied to the land and maintained the Lord's control over his workforce. Freemen lived under different conditions. They rented land and paid rent, usually in money or produce, and had more freedom to move and make their own decisions. However, they still lived under the Lord's authority and paid taxes, including the tithe to the church and other fees. The manor court was the center of local justice. The lord or his steward held court sessions to resolve disputes, enforce laws, and punish crimes. Punishments could be harsh and public to deter others. For example, a peasant caught baking bread in their own oven when only the official baker had the right to use the village oven might be branded on the hand with a hot iron shaped like a cross. Economics in the village grew slowly but steadily. While most villagers lived off the land, some craftspeople made tools, shoes, clothes, or other goods. Beekeeping was common, providing honey used to sweeten food and make mead, an alcoholic drink. Surplus products were sold at local markets or larger fairs held annually. These markets allowed villagers to buy goods they could not produce, such as salt, spices, or cloth. Money became more common during the later Middle Ages, gradually replacing barter. Coins were minted by kings and local lords, allowing trade to grow beyond the village borders. Traveling merchants connected rural communities to distant towns and cities, bringing new ideas and products. Villagers relied heavily on the church for comfort and guidance. The local priest was a key figure who not only led religious services, but also helped settle disputes and care for the sick. Religious festivals were important social events, offering breaks from hard labor and chances to enjoy music, dancing, and feasting. Education was limited, but sometimes provided by the church or wealthier families. Most peasants were illiterate learning skills and traditions by oral storytelling and daily practice. Skills like farming, weaving, or blacksmithing passed from parents to children. Life in these small rural communities was shaped by hard work, strict social rules, and deep connections to land and faith. People lived simple lives but faced many dangers and uncertainties. Their resilience and strong sense of community helped them endure through difficult times. By understanding their world, we gain a clearer picture of the Middle Ages beyond castles and kings, the everyday reality of most people who lived during this fascinating period. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future videos. Your support really helps this channel grow, and I truly appreciate it. See you in the next one.